Okay, this fine automobile has a misfire. We can verify that. Let's go ahead and crank this baby up. We'll get it running here. How do you guys know it's misfiring?
Stumbling real bad.
Yeah, you can see it. It's moving. You can even hear it. Alright, what happens when you try to rev it? You can tell, right? Go ahead and kill it. Okay, so now that you're all fine looking and paying a lot of attention, what's your step one? This is a customer's car. What do you want to do?
Check for fault codes.
I would, right? If it's a newer car, misfire codes are going to be set. How do we do that?
The tech stream.
All right, get the tech stream or a universal scan tool, get it set up, and we'll get it under here where we could see it. All right, so tech stream's just pulling up. I guess it should be GTS Plus. So let me take a step back. If this was old school, you wouldn't be able to really check for codes. But if it's anything, you know, figure in the 90s and newer, especially 96 and up, this is how we'd proceed. So Mitchell, you're running this thing. What do you want to check?
Health check.
You could run every module if you want, and that could make sense. It'll just take longer. Or we could do a system select.
System select, yeah. Okay.
All right. I think you should be able to just click. Oh, it started the health check and then paused it.
Sorry.
It's okay. You can get this.
System select. There you go.
That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about right there.
Very good.
Very good. Let's see if I can cut down the glare. Not really. Kind of. Yeah, we're looking decent. All right. Never said it'd be really fast. You guys have any predictions what DTCs we may find? Okay, misfire. You remember any numbers? Cylinder something. So if it's random or multiple cylinders, Val, what's the number? Come on, give me the number. It's okay if you don't know.
The code?
Yeah. No, 420. I don't know how you memorized that one, but 300 would be random or multiple. But what do we have? Okay, interesting. So we actually don't really show a misfire, which is kind of weird. Oh no! Now we do have some injector stuff, and they're permanent. The problem is with a permanent. Do you guys know how permanent codes are cleared? You have to run it and have it pass the monitor. Yeah. Exactly. So these faults right here are probably no longer current, to be quite honest with you. But none of these codes are actually really helping us figure out where the misfire is at. But you heard the misfire, right? I heard the misfire. Unfortunately, the tech stream's not really helping us. Now we could try to go into like enhanced OBD mode, and we could try to do misfire counter. You could try to do that, but that's okay. We got another way we can do it. Who's going to be the power balance tester? Okay, to power balance it, remember, we got to have it running. So we'll start it back up. You ready, Sergio? We'll get it running. Yeah, we'll babysit that computer. We'll use it some more later. Okay, let's listen for a second. Let it stabilize. All right, so that's kind of its running RPM. What we could do too, you could get the tech stream out and you could pull up engine RPM and we could see the difference, but I suspect we'll be able to hear it, okay? Go ahead and pull cylinder 1. Okay, let's listen to this for a second. Plug it back in. I heard a little bit of a difference. It wasn't that big though, so Sergio, can you pull up live data and do, let's look at engine RPM. Okay, we'll get that in a second. Pull 1 again. I felt like there's a slight difference. Connect it. You could hear it pick up a little, but it'll be easier to see that with the RPM up. Try 2. Oh, that sounds a little funny too. Connect it. That was hard to tell. Do 3. Okay, could you guys tell 3 definitely made a difference? Connect it back up. All right, I'm going to say with confidence, 3 is definitely working. When we disable 3, you can see it really fall off. So 3 is working. Try 4. Okay, for sure, right? You can hear it? Me too. Plug it, connect it up. All right, but 1 and 2 are a little indecisive to me. I couldn't quite tell what was going on there. Try doing 1 again. That might have been a little bit of a difference, but you're right, not much. And then connect that one. And try 2. That was tough to say. Leave number 1 disconnect. Disconnect them both. Yeah. It doesn't seem like 1 or 2 is doing anything. Connect 1 first. And connect 2. See, 2 seemed like it might have changed. Okay, that's kind of interesting. Did we get RPM pulled up? Pass it out. I can't see it. Bring it on over here. Okay, so if we get RPM pulled up, we could select it. You don't want to download it. We could graph it. All right, so you guys, we'll run a graph here. There's our RPM. Go ahead and disconnect 1 again. I saw it spike down when we did 1. Connect 1. It did spike up. All right, do the same thing with 2. Okay, yeah, 2 did a little thing too. Okay, connect it back up. So this power balance test is kind of like 3 and 4 check out. 1 and 2, I don't know. It's kind of iffy. Maybe that's part of the reason it's not setting a code, because it's maybe a little bit of both misfires. Now we'll shut it off. Now we need to make a plan. So we got 2 different directions we could go. Okay, you're all part of this. Who can call what you would do if this was a customer's car? You can. So if you have a misfire, one of the most common things is spark. So if you want, Roberto, you're the spark man. Okay, explain to what's going to go on here. To check the spark, we're going to what? Huh? Yeah, so we're going to pull the coil. We're going to pull the coil, and then we're going to connect that spark tester up. You ready? All right, good. So now you guys can see. We're going to put the spark tester in the coil. Very nice. Find a good ground, and then reconnect the coil. It's not a real tough test. Just be mindful that if there's fuel vapor and that thing sparks, it'll make fire vapor and burn stuff to the ground. Okay, you like it? Sergio, you want to jump in there and start it? All right, we substitute somebody else. Brandon, go ahead. Okay, hey, what do you see there? You can hear it mostly. Good. Okay, Brandon, we're good. In fact, this would be fun, but Roberto, you're going to go ahead and you're going to move that to cylinder number 2. It'd be kind of fun to crank it while he's touching it. You'll see if it sparks. Nah, man. We could do it. Okay, part of the lesson, if that one didn't spark, we would be pursuing ignition now. Okay, that's relevant, but not really part of this class. Okay, we're not really teaching about primary, secondary ignition. This is engines class, so as you would expect, the spark is good. So we'll see if we got spark on that cylinder number 2. If you had spark on no cylinders, what do you think the customer concern is? Power. It wouldn't be no power. That sucker would be like a crank no start. It would just sha-na-na-na-na-na-na. If it has no spark on no cylinder, it's a no start, period. And you're not checking coils at that point, most likely. You're looking more like ECM or like a crankshaft position sensor. That crank position sensor is input for all the cylinders. If that one sensor is no good, then you have no spark in 4 cylinders, all of them. Cool? All right, so now you can see 1's in, 2's out. We'll connect the rig here. Put it to your tongue. We are really ready now. You can already tell. Oh, it popped off. You're gonna get. You knew it was coming. You knew it was coming. Hold up. No, when it sparks, you'll know. Okay, there's a lesson there. There's a lesson there. So if this makes 60,000 volts, you don't have to touch it. You have to get near it. And what are your feet touching? Okay, and so this will jump into your finger. That's another way to spark test. Yeah, we have nice language, don't we? Okay, spark on those was good. Don't start it this time. Don't. I see that evil smile. Okay, so that was funny, but okay, spark is good. So if spark is good and it misfires, what do we need to check? Compression and fuel, those are good answers. How are you going to check fuel? Right? If this had a bad fuel pump, what would the cause be? Exactly. And we have a misfire. So if you're thinking a fuel pump, if you're thinking, it's low on gas, or that doesn't cause these two cylinders to misfire, that would cause all four of them. And then you're looking at a crank no start, not to be confused with a no crank, which would be like dead battery. Okay, so any ideas to check fuel? Let's say this is port fuel injected. You could put a stethoscope on and you could go to the injector and you could actually put the stethoscope on the injector and see if it clicks. That's going to tell you electrically if the solenoid's actuating. The injector's a solenoid, right? Closed, open, 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 open. But the clicks don't tell you if the fuel is flowing. Make sense? Where's Kenny at? Come on, Kenny, you're the video man, because I want to make sure that this is made clear. You're videotaping right now. I didn't hand it to you paused. So if I had the stethoscope like this, and it's going, all that tells me is the injector's getting 12 volts in ground. Make sense? That doesn't tell me if the injector's clogged with dirt or clogged with rust or some other restriction. Okay, so if you wanted to know if the injector's flowing fuel, you got a couple things you could do. One, you could pull the injectors out and actually pulse them and blow through them or pressurize it with fuel and see if the fuel actually sprays. That's kind of a tough thing to do. Like normally you'd pull the injectors out and you put it in a flow test machine and you'd actually pressurize a rail and it would spray tester through it and you'd measure it in like a little graduated cylinder, like a vial, and see how much in each injector flowed. Does that sound quick?
Not really.
No, so that's not really the direction we're going to go. If this was domestic, it'd be a little easier to check fuel pressure in the fuel rail and then prime it up to, let's say, 60 PSI, then command cylinder 1 on, and the PSI will drop. And if it drops from 60 to 50, that tells you it's moving a volume of fuel. And then you do it for cylinder 2, it drops 60 to 50. Then let's say you did it for 3 and it dropped 1 PSI, that tell you the injector's restricted. That's an injector flow test. You don't really run into that on a lot of the Japanese stuff. So we'd have to figure out our own way to test the injectors. If all else fails, you could swap injectors. If the injector from 1 didn't, if we have a misfire on 1 and you move that injector to 4 and now the misfire's on 4, it's an injector, right? But other than that, it's hard to test injectors. So typically the second step is going to be, we want to pursue if it's an engine problem. We could check compression. Now I'll take that back. If we were to check compression, that'd be a great test. But what we could also do, we could do vacuum. So Sergio, you're up. You ready? We're going to actually measure vacuum of the whole engine. That doesn't measure each cylinder, but it'll give us an idea if we got a mechanical issue. Before we check vacuum, though, we need to get that cylinder back in. You ready? Okay, you ready? So here what we did, we found a vacuum line that's definitely going to have a vacuum source. Although now that I follow it, this might actually be a vacuum pump. Let's see. We're going to start it and let's see what the vacuum does. Okay, yeah, that's pretty high. I'm afraid that's probably not going to be vacuum. Okay, you know how I know it's not vacuum? It's dead steady and it doesn't change with throttle. So this engine must actually use a vacuum pump, probably because it's turbo. So we need to find a new vacuum source. Alright, so we do have a vacuum source here, but it's making really little vacuum. Go ahead and blip the throttle. Again. One more time. All right, kill it. All right, so this is the challenge on this. There's really only one spot to pull vacuum from, and we pulled it off the throttle body going to the purge solenoid. Kind of hard to even hold the hose here. But if you guys saw, you'll notice this thing's barely even making vacuum. Like, this engine's barely running, which makes sense because it feels like it's barely running. Sergio, I'm going to put you in charge of reconnecting that. So if our vacuum reading is incorrect, doesn't that kind of further tell us we got an engine issue? If it was a fuel injector, the vacuum reading would be fine. If it was a spark plug, it'd be fine. If it was a coil, it'd be fine. So you never want to go into the engine thinking it's an engine lightly because, engines are fairly reliable now. Next, what I'd like to do, what do you guys think? You try to get that hose connected back to the purge. It's like underneath. What do you guys think after this? Compression's pretty easy test, huh? Okay, compression test we'll keep the charger on and we'll get ready to compression test. We'll probably do 1 through 3. If you wanted, you could do 4, but we know that 3 and 4 were good. We'll mostly use 3 as a reference and then we'll check 1 and 2 and see where 1 and 2's at. All right, so coils are coming out and compression test. Who's in charge of the compression test? Good. Let's see. All right, so in that spark plug, it's already looking, see, this is carbon fouled. It's pretty rough looking. All right, so first off, we could clean the spark plug, but this spark plug looking dark won't cause that vacuum reading, and it won't cause low compression if we do fail compression. I think it's a combination. There's some oil on the spark plug, yes. You're catching everything now. That's probably more like we've had this valve cover on and off for practice so many times. That's probably actually the boot seal. But down in here, this is more like carbon fouled. Let's see what that number 2 looks like. We'll pull, we'll pull all of them out. We'll do an evaluation. So we just pulled 4 coils, 4 spark plugs. They're actually all pretty dark, carboned up. So that's not a good sign, but I'm still going to stick to the compression test. All right, so once 4 spark plugs are out, we're going to get set up for cylinder number 1. Ready? Who's in charge of that? Go ahead. Go for it. We're using the hose with the valve in it. Very good. Nice job. Made sure it's the right adapter. Here we go. All right, we got it in there. Brandon, go ahead and give it about five puffs, as they say. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Good. Okay. This is a smart key, so you guys are giggling, but you figure out how to shut it off now? Got to press it once and then press again, because that was like 7. You doing it random? Or so let's start this over. That was a fail. Let's bleed it out, and then we're going to go for 5. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes. 150. What do you think? Good number, bad number?
Good.
Probably well within spec, would you say? Okay, switch it over to number 2. All right, we quickly got it on 2. Let's go ahead and do another 5. 1, 2. You hear that? You can't even tell what's 5 or 4. There's an interesting point to be made right there. Just that sound alone tells you a lot. Try it one more time. Do you hear any puffs? That's because, think about it. Cylinder 1, 3, and 4 have no spark plugs, so they don't make compression. Cylinder 2, well, none of them have spark plugs, but it's got the compression tester in there, so that one should do the... It's not. What do we know about cylinder 2? No compression. So we registered about 0 on the gauge. We have no compression. Now, I'm going to pause because I'm going to show you one more way that we could have done this. In fact, we'll come back and we'll do it after we button it up. But we could have used the tech stream to figure this out too. All right, so now that we know that cylinder 2 has no compression, it's kind of up to you if you want to proceed with 3 and 4. Those fired, so what do we know? We kind of already know that 3 and 4 are going to have compression, right? So when you get on these worksheets, they tell you test this, test this, test this, test this. You're welcome to test 3 and 4, and if you spend the next 10 minutes on it, cool, but I don't think it's really necessary at this point. So now, what's wrong with this engine? Cylinder 2 has no compression, but what do we sell the customer?
Oh yeah, the teardown.
Exactly. Well, hold up. Teardown we could, but if you go into this engine, you need to be able to have a pretty good idea of what you're looking for. And right now, all we know is it has low compression. So we're looking at the head, we're looking at valves, we're looking at pistons, we're looking at, we don't really know yet. So tear down will be okay, but further diagnosis is going to be better. Who's the cylinder leakage crew? All right, let's get the cylinder leakage crew up. We'll pull the compression tester out, get cylinder leakage in. We're going to talk it through. We're here with the mad scientists. We got cylinder number 2 coming up to TDC. So we're just turning the crankshaft right now, right? All right. Got the crankshaft getting turned, and you're just looking for TDC. It's still coming up, right? Now, okay, there you go. Now, the thing is, though, do you know if it's on compression or exhaust?
No.
I don't really know either. So you're going to put air to it, and if all the air leaks out the exhaust, you might be on the exhaust stroke. But that's fine. That's what we do. All right, very good. Now there's some other things we need to do to be prepared to listen to where the air is going, don't we? Hooking that up. Yeah, what if it's leaking in the head gasket? We need that. This doesn't have a radiator cap, so we need this cap off. It's like a radiator cap. It's actually just on an elbow. What else? Intake, right? All right, so as we're doing this, you can see us got the breaker bar, ratcheting breaker bar. Give it a shot. Does it have a valve?
Has a valve.
Okay, so hang on just a second. If it has a valve, think about what happens. You try to inject air with the cylinder leakage tester, the valve stops it, it passes with no leaks. The air never even made it into the cylinder. You could take the valve out, but we have a hose with the valve out, so we'll use that one. There we go. Okay, and then when we do this, we should be able to hold the crankshaft relatively well from here, so that was good.
The hose.
Talk. Okay, before we hook this up, we've got this set to air. We turn the valve up. We can actually turn up a little bit higher here. Yeah, I got it. Okay, we're going to bring it to set. You could go actually right to 0 if you want. Close it. Now, when we hook this up, we're looking for bubbles. We're listening for air, so we got to actually pop that air box off. That's going to be a little tough right now. Or we could pop it off here. That might actually be better. We'll pop the intake off right there. We also need to have the spark plugs next door out in case there's a head gasket type leak. And then what if it's an exhaust valve leak? Where's that going to leak out? So you can come back here and listen, but it tends to be a bit of a pain. So Win being the good homie, try to wrap some gloves and zip tie them on there. You might need several. If we need to get a bag, we will. But we're going to make like basically a balloon fixture here around these tailpipes. They're kind of a pain. All right, so here we go. Because these tailpipes are very odd shaped, we upgraded from like the typical utter looking glove blow-up doll to the big bags. You got this. Obviously, the purpose of this, if there's leakage in the exhaust valve, like let's say a bent valve or a seat, the air will get back in the exhaust and you'll see these swell up. It might take a while because they're huge, but that'll work. The intake's going to be much more simple because we'll be able to hear it here. If you want to visualize this, we could actually put a glove on this too. It might be fun. Okay, but we're pretty close to ready. There you go. Look at that dirty old glove. Where'd you find that? Oh, all right. There we go. If it swells like a big cow, you ever milked a cow? If it swells up like a cow, that's how you know. Okay, so we're taking predictions now. If it is a blown head gasket, what do we experience?
Wobblies.
Okay, it depends on the fail. And yes, Subaru is a short way to put it. If cylinder combustion is leaking to the coolant bubbles, yes. But what if it's blown between two cylinders? You'd hear it coming out of 3 or out of 1. Okay, that'd be adjacent. That's the term, adjacent. Or what if it's intake valve or intake seat type of thing? You might be looking at the bowl like this. Very good. Or you'd be hearing it out the intake. Exhaust, I think you guys know that's why we bagged the exhaust ups. Now, what about if it's piston rings bottom end? Rings, cylinder wear, big score in the cylinder. What are we going to? Oil cap. So see, I got you. You had practice. You had time to practice, but I didn't see oil cap off, so I'm going to take care of that. So if you hear like that, you know that it's bottom end. That means you better not sell them at cylinder head because cylinder head ain't going to fix it. You understand? We need to know what we're selling the customer here. Okay, how's the back ready? Oh, just about. Yeah. All right, supposedly we're ready. Now, when we go ahead and hook this air up, that breaker bar is going to try to get wild on you. So you're going to be ready for this? Okay? And if it might not. Let's go. You ready? Go ahead. We're on set. Let's see what the leakage is.
All right. 1, 2, 3.
Okay, we've got nearly 100% leakage. We got like 90%. You hear something?
Yep.
You can hear air rushing? We're listening?
Oh, yeah.
You should be able to see it with the glove. Don't see anything yet. Now remember, we're not 100% sure that we're on compression. We could be on the exhaust stroke. Still getting those things bagged up. Oh, the bag did blow up, didn't it? Hey, let's pull the air off that valve. Okay. Okay. Interesting. Okay, let me zoom in. Hook the air back up.
Back up.
Yeah, you could see it swell up. All right, these bags are pretty big, so I would have thought it would have filled up quicker, but it seemed like we might have something on the exhaust. Interesting. Okay, we're going to do another test too. Because look, we're not 100% sure we're on the intake, that we're on compression, right? So if you're not sure that you're on, let's just say we think we're on TDC exhaust, where's TDC compression? It's a full 360 around. So if you turn this crankshaft, you can keep air on it. Full 360. And if all of a sudden this goes to low, it's just because we had it on the exhaust stroke. But I'm not sure that we did. Still no bubbles here. Still nothing on the intake. You can hear the air going in, but you don't really hear it on other cylinders. Keep going, Ernie. We'll see if it ever gets any lower. The problem is going to be here. Yeah, you can see they sucked right up now.
Look at him.
I think the air just came out now because we're turning it. Let's see.
Sure to take up the tips.
It's hard to go right to the pipe, huh? Because it's got the big exhaust tips.
Go back at the tip.
Yeah. A little more. All right, air's off. Put air on. You got. Oh yeah, you saw it. You could hear it with the air hose. Let me get a view from back here. Let's have you do the air on again. Pull it back off. You can mostly see the initial puff. Air off. Is the air off? Okay. See this thing totally deflated? No, leave it off. Okay, we gotta kind of like deflate it. Deflate it, let the air come out of it. Okay, air back on, and then see if you guys can clog that one up. Yeah, you see it. We could see when you're putting the air on. You guys get a good look at this, because this sometimes when it's an exhaust valve leak, it's a little bit hard to hear, especially because the exhaust is not always totally sealed. But take a look at this. Let's go air off.
Yeah, Jesse, take it off.
You can already see it's sagging, right? But you'll kind of like fold it all up. In fact, here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna drop my mic off. I want you to keep this up here so we can hear when you hook the air up. Like clip it on your shirt. All right, so that way when you hook the air up, we'll be able to hear it. Working on it. Okay, I'll take it back. Okay, you could definitely see a really clear correlation with the sound back there. So, okay, so what's the diagnosis on this customer vehicle?
Bad exhaust valve.
Okay, but we don't know exactly what, do we? So if you now know exhaust is leaking into the exhaust, the air is leaking into the exhaust, do you think it has bad rings? Because some people thought bad rings before.
No.
No. Head gasket? No. Intake valve?
No.
It's really exhaust valve, which means we'd really need to pull this head, pull the head, inspect. Maybe we find a damaged valve seat. Maybe we find a damaged valve itself. Maybe we find something's wrong with the valve spring or something. But that's how you do the diagnosis. This is as far as we can go. We know when we pull this head, we're going to find something up with the cylinder number 2 exhaust valve. Cool? Any questions on the diagnosis?
Nope.
Why not skip the compression test and go right to cylinder leakage then? Because I can explain that to you too. A lot of people would do that. Remember I was telling you earlier, if you were to skip compression test and just go to cylinder leakage, this one you would have found, but what if you had a worn cam lobe or like a rocker arm that was off? You wouldn't have found this. You would have found that it held air, but it didn't actually build compression. But if you skipped compression, you wouldn't have known that. So you'd have been like, oh no, the cylinder's good. But in reality, if the cam lobe doesn't open the valve, it won't build compression. And yet the valve will seal in the cylinder and it won't leak. So you really have to do it in that sequence. The only thing you could have done better in the dealerships, because you guys are going to be, working flat rate, I probably wouldn't have done the compression test. I probably would have done the relative compression test, but I did make a video on that already. I could link it to this one. So this would have failed a relative compression test. Cylinder 1, I could tell you from memory, cylinder 1 was 171 RPM. Yeah. Cylinder 2 was what, 224, 225? 235. Cylinder 3 was 170 something. They were all, 170 and then 171. So they were all about 170 RPM. So when cylinder 1 was on compression, it was slowing down. When cylinder 2 was on compression, it wasn't. It was going fast. When cylinder number 3 was on compression, it would slow down, and 4 would slow down. But 2 was basically no resistance. It wasn't slowing the crank down. So that would have saved us a little bit, but this was still a longer diag. Okay, that's the summary. Okay.